Hey guys, Alexander Nava here. I'm here in front of the beautiful Milwaukee skyline on a Sunday afternoon. I'm going to be showing you how to take panoramas with your DJI Ronin S. Let's get right into it. So why would you want to do a panorama instead of taking a wide shot? Well, that's easy. If you're going to be blowing this up to a giant print, or you just want the quality and you want to be able to zoom in on some of the details, taking several photos and combining them will give you a larger megapixel count. So essentially you're getting a higher res photo that will be able to be printed on larger paper without losing quality. So a couple of things to note when you're doing your panorama. You want to put your camera into manual mode because that way you don't have your focus shifting, and then that way the software will be able to easily recognize where to stitch the photos. Another thing you'd want to do is put it into manual exposure mode. That way all the shots look the same and you don't have a change in brightness because that's going to be a pain to fix later on. So by remembering to fix it while you're doing it, putting it into manual mode for both focus and exposure mode, you'll basically set this up so that once it stitches together, it's one even color and one same focal field. Also, if you don't have a DJI Ronin S, you don't need one. You can actually do this with the tripod itself. The only difference is you'll have to make sure that you have enough overlap to make sure that the stitching software is able to put it together. So just make sure that you have more rather than too little. But if you have something like this, it'll automatically do it for you. Okay guys, once your camera is hooked up, you're gonna go ahead, and I have the DJI command unit here. But if you don't have this, you can actually use your smartphone. Just hook it up and you'll have similar menus here. So what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna go into the create menu, and then you're gonna hit panorama. You're gonna wanna go ahead and input all your camera information here. So I have the cable hooked up, so it automatically knows that mine is a Sony. You're going to ask you for your sensor size, so I'm shooting with the A7 III, so that's a full frame. You're going to input the focal length. I have the 24-70 on there, and I'm actually going to be shooting at 70 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up to shoot at 70 millimeters. The overlap is the percentage that you want your photo to overlap so that you can stitch it. The more that you overlap, the better it is to stitch, but then you have more data and more photos, so just adjust that accordingly. I have mine set at 30%, and I'm just going to go ahead and leave it like that. Delay is the amount of seconds between photos. It's at 2 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that. So once you're ready, go ahead and hit quick start or begin. And it's going to ask you to set your start and end points. So this is going to be the two opposite corners of a frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set those right now. And you do that by clicking. And then you're going to go ahead and move the gimbal to where you want it to start. And you're going to set the end point as well. And you're going to set that to the opposite corner where you want it to end. And then once you've done that, you can go ahead, hit begin, and it'll start capturing the various images for you. All right, guys, now I've gotten the photos that I need from my DJI Ronin S and A7 III. Let's go ahead and head back to the studio. I'll teach you how I put them together and just the easiest way to do it. All right, guys, I'm back in the studio here, and I'm going to show you how to stitch your panorama together using Lightroom. So there are many different applications out there that go a lot more in depth than Lightroom, but I think this is the easiest way for a beginner to start, especially if you just want to get a couple panoramas and get some prints for yourself. But just know that there are more complex programs out there that will let you do a lot more than Lightroom will, but this is what I started with, and this is probably the easiest to use. Okay, so now we have Lightroom open here, and once you're in Lightroom, you're gonna go and make sure that you're in the library tab up above. Once you're there, you're gonna wanna open the folder where you've placed all your files that your camera took that we're gonna stitch together. So once you have them here, it's as easy as just dragging and dropping them into Lightroom. So it's going to ask you what you want to do with them to import them into Lightroom. I'm just going to hit add just so it doesn't move any of my photos, but you certainly can change that. This doesn't impact it at all. I'm also going to build smart previews so that everything kind of handles better, but you don't really need to do that if you don't want. It just depends on your personal preferences. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find a set of photos that's a panorama. Now you can do that by looking at the timestamps, or they should be in order, but once you find a set of photos, so for example, I know that this photo is the top left corner of my panorama, and I know that this photo here is the bottom right of my panorama. You're gonna select all the photos. So you can select the first one and hold down Shift until you get to the last one, and that'll select all the photos in the middle there. Once you have all your photos selected that are a panorama, go ahead and go into Photo, Photo Merge, and do Panorama. Now, Lightroom will automatically take a look at the photos and figure out how they belong together by looking at common pixels that belong, and it'll automatically stitch it. Auto crop crops into your image and cuts off that border, and fill edges, I believe, does like a mirror. Now, boundary warp is a little cool. It actually takes the image and it warps it, kind of stretches it to fill the frame, so you actually preserve more of the image. So I'm gonna go ahead and use boundary warp and kind of do it that way, and then you can actually do an auto crop to fill in. That way I kind of preserve as much of the photo as I want, but I'm gonna do it that way. You can play around with whatever settings work best for you in your photos. I'm gonna go ahead and hit merge, and it's gonna give it some time to process. Up here on the top left, you'll see that Lightroom says it's creating a panorama. So we're gonna go ahead and wait for that to finish, and I'll show you guys the product. All right, here, so we're in the panorama file that Lightroom has created for us, and one of the best things that that you can have about using a panorama is the quality. So you're taking so many photos, you're stitching them together, you're combining the megapixels. So when I zoom in, there's an amazing level of detail. And if you have a longer focal length lens, you can actually get even more detail. It would take more photos, of course, because it'd be a smaller chunk of the panorama, but you can get some amazing detail in panoramas, which is great for really, really large prints. If this was just a wide angle, well, first of all, the top and the bottom would be chopped off, so you would have some loss there, but you would not be able to get this level of detail. And because I shot this in RAW, Lightroom created a digital negative file. So this is a digital negative file. So I can do everything, to edit to get it down to my final image, like I would do to my regular RAW file. So if I wanted to increase the contrast, maybe go ahead and add a little bit of vibrance and saturation to get those colors back. If I had a little bit too much highlights there, and I wanted to decrease the shadows, something like this. I'll finish editing it here in a second, but you're retaining all the information to be able to make those changes. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish editing my file, and I will show you the final product. All right, so I got the color to where I want it here, and the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna get rid of this pull right here, just because to me it's a little bit distracting. All right, now the pull is gone, and that is my panorama. Now I can go ahead and export that, send it off to get printed, and do whatever I want with it. I can publish it, and it'll retain that level of detail there from all the photos that we stitched together. Thank you guys so much for watching another one of my videos. I hope you enjoyed it. If this video helped you make a panorama, go ahead and give us a like. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you stay notified of my future videos. And leave a comment down below if you had any questions or you got stuck on something. I'd be more than happy to help you guys out in answering any of those.